Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Cyber Shadow. In the last part we finished off Chapter 4 and now it's time for Chapter 5, the Research Lab. The levels are only getting longer in design, but thankfully from here on we're going to have some ways to make them feel a little shorter in some regards. Now, at the end of the last part, I said this is probably by and large my least favorite level, and that's mostly for the first playthrough, because they make you use the parry here a lot. And the parry, as we got at the end of the last part, you press the D-pad in the direction of an incoming projectile, even if it's from above or below you, and it becomes an orb that you can then shoot into something else to do damage. And it's a useful ability, but they make you have to do it in some weird ways throughout the game, and something about the fact that it's tapping the D-pad in the direction and then attacking it just feels really uncomfortable. If they can maybe like use one of the trigger buttons for this, I think it'd be a lot more comfortable. Like hold R1 or R2 and then get hit by a projectile and they would get parried maybe. But what makes this level dangerous is the amount of instant kill obstacles, particularly in sections like this where you have to cross those barriers that make these spikes behind you chase you. Those spikes are instant kill, but not all the other ones in this level are. If they are hidden in the wall, like the weird little pink ones, those will just do some damage to you. The stage is a little inconsistent about that overall. I think the main thing is that they're immediately visible to more like instant kill. This is a very different stage from most, given the amount of projectiles they have throwing at you, and it is all meant to kind of just feed into learning how to use the parry correctly, particularly with those doors, but it just feels very uncomfortable. On top of that, a lot of the checkpoints in here natively are ones you need to use essence to even get an HP recovery from, because this place is just that under disrepair because of all this purple stuff growing all over the place. Admittedly, it's a very visually striking level. It's very different than basically anything else in the game because of all this stuff, but on my first playthrough, it was this in Chapter 8 that killed me absolutely the most. And in Chapter 8's case, that's probably just because it's such a long chapter. This is a place you should very much take your time, even if you're being chased, because if you're running fast enough, you might not notice the spikes coming out of the ground, you might not notice a single enemy jumping your way. Patience here is still necessary, but it's a little exacerbated because of the chase sequences. I thought on the first playthrough that these chases were a lot harder than they actually ended up being, though. If only because I was being impatient for one thing, but for another, mentally, I remember the spikes being able to chase you even during some vertical sections, but no, they only really go in one direction. Once they hit a wall, they tend to stop. Plus, I missed that health refill there, which is one of the most usefully placed health refills in the game. Some of the enemies here also sort of spawn infinitely. It's namely the little bulbs in the background of the stages. Those can just respawn after a few seconds if you're taking too long to move on to the next section. I sense lore. L-gion personal log. A study of the vessel's memory indicates the transfer was limited. Only the strongest thoughts and feelings of the master were carried over. The vessel, therefore, is a distilled version of her former self. L-gion personal log. There's no external transfer taking place. Yet, she's accumulating immense amounts of data. Our storage arrays are being overloaded. What is she trying to achieve? L-gion personal log. The vessel attempted to restart an incubation chamber. To what end? Her life was obliterated. What could she be planning? L-gion personal log. The Imperator is utterly devoted to the vessel, believing the experiment was a success. We gain no advantage by telling him otherwise, given his current state. We'll see how this unfolds. L-gion personal log. Astounding! The vessel remembers details from her past, yet she has no essence reading. Is she a mere copy, an AI? Could this be used for the development of new synthetics? Vessel schematic. Accessing data. Essence source classified. Storage capacity 1.5 petabytes. Processing power 19.9 petaflops. Damn! Now, eagle-eyed viewers might notice a little blinking light on the side of that room that indicates a hidden switch. That is something you can hit to get some more lore stuff. I completely forgot to do that until the eventual item cleanup, so we'll see eventually. But it's a little bit out of the way. And in some regards, seeing that information then is weirdly more revealing than it is right now. So in some ways, it's better to see it then, but if you want the full atmosphere, do it now. With that said, we're coming up on the first collectible for this stage, and it requires the use of the wall cling and down strike to get to. So be careful. If you miss the lantern wall cling, you can just use the little blob enemies like I just did, but you actively have to use them to get anywhere in this room. Just be careful, and if you need to actively parry the one on the far side so that it doesn't try to snipe you in the middle of your jumps, because I've had that happen several times, like that. With that said, this room is definitely worth going for, because up here we got another SP up. And I'll take as much of that as I can. I use that stuff a lot. Incubation Chamber A, status breached. Incubation Chamber B, status specimen relocated. Admittedly, in some story regards, this is actually my favorite level of the game just because there's so many little layers to it, but some of those are going to be hard to pick up on a first playthrough, honestly. I think I didn't get a full grasp of this game's story until like my second run or so, just in terms of the stuff I missed in the first run. And part of it's just because of me going out of my way to see more of the computers, because I missed some of them and the information they said on my first playthrough. Huh. I guess these must be the incubation chambers they just mentioned. Yeah, A is definitely breached. Well, no way out that way. Let's check the other way then. Oh god. Hi there. Let's just prevent you from being a problem. My god, you have a lot of HP. You okay there, guy? You're just kind of... Oh. You've come a long way since joining us, Shadow. You grow more powerful by the day. Yeah, all thanks to the Master's training, no doubt. Pretty rigorous, huh? We all have a role to play, Geo. The Eternal Dragon grants us purpose. Shadow, your place is beside me, amongst the other three elementals. And my place is with you, as more than just members of the clan, if you'd have me. Even if our paths are destined soon to split, we'll be connected across eternity. In time, you'll have to face many challenges without my guidance, but you'll never be alone. Let this locket remind you of that, of our bonds, through the ethos, through the past and the future. Our bonds through life and death. Oh no, not again. Shadow, are you okay? Snap out of it! One of our clan is close by. I can't pinpoint their exact location, though. Just hang in there, okay? Thanks for the help, Legion. We'll adapt and get through this, like we always do. So let's chase that big guy down. With that said, this stage definitely gets a lot more dangerous from here on. We're gonna start seeing these gigantic bulbs of the globs we saw earlier, connected to the ground by some vines. They're troublesome in that they also generate projectiles, but if you accidentally attack their vines connected to the ground, they get separated and will track on you. Attack just the bulbs, not the vines and appendages connecting them to anything. Just to help survive a little bit, because if you're too close to them and they start moving, you're more than likely going to take a guaranteed hit. Plus, you can use some of them as airstrike fodder, and you know what? I'll always take that. More health there. This is probably one of the harder screens of the game right here, just because you have to race these instant kill projectiles over to the point where you have to parry this wall, and if you're not used to the parry yet, that is surprisingly strict. Time for a boss fight against Subject Alpha, once again using some Mega Man X sound instruments. I'm doing actually a little bit of a challenge run here to show off an achievement. If you only defeat Subject Alpha by using the parry, you get a feat. He's gonna jump all over the place, jumping left and right, doing one of two attacks. Either a gigantic projectile that he'll throw at you directly, and he'll eventually start following it up with a smaller one to lower down his health as to try and trap you. Or he'll do a ground slam that'll send fire in both directions for him, but you can parry the fire on the ground as well, so take advantage of that to do some extra damage. His jump arc is a little bit unpredictable, if only because sometimes he'll jump to the wall, sometimes he won't. He kind of tries to aim for you in that regard, I guess. And when he throws his second shot down the line in his health bar, he'll throw either high or low to kind of try and hit you if you're on the wall or on the ground. So be a bit careful of that. It's not a hard fight, but if you're not used to the parry or if you're slow at absorbing boss patterns, he seems pretty unpredictable. Is he okay? Oh, I know that feeling. Bad headache. Yeah, I guess he wasn't okay. So we're far from done with this chapter, of course, but I recommend being careful if you're going for feats in this chapter moving forward, because there's another boss fight coming up that has another feat tied to it, but it's one of the more dickishly done ones in that if you screw up one thing, you're not getting it until your next playthrough. You need to start the next boss fight and beat it with 0 SP. So if you accidentally invest your essence into the SP recovery thing at the next checkpoint or two, you're probably just not getting that feat, and that's real rough. There's a couple cases like that. Usually against like the boss fight ones, you can probably just like, if you mess up, Alt F4 before the boss animation finishes and be good for that. But I think the moment you use your essence on a checkpoint to restore it, a save prompt happens immediately, so you're kind of out of luck at that point until your next playthrough. It's kind of stupid. Not that Shovel Knight doesn't have some stuff like that, but by and large, like with Shovel Knight, just use the other Yacht Club games as an example. Most feats can be gotten on a single playthrough, as long as you can go back into the stage to try again, like breaking all the checkpoints or doing a stage deathless. I think the only ones that are one and done are dying, but even then, as long as you, again, just reset, you're fine. It's just kind of weird. Alright, Subject Alpha's back and is going to be mutating into a Mega Man Zero boss fight, weirdly. So this fight's pretty simple. He's got 2 attacks. Shooting a gigantic projectile out of his eye, and the moment you hit him, he spawns a little blob that'll follow onto you. Eventually, the mouth and the ribcage will open up and send spikes along the floor. You just have to jump over that from the wall. This isn't a hard fight, but you need to be careful about how many hits you try to get in, because if you get too greedy, you'll probably just get hit by either the blobs or the spikes. Plus, further into the fight, he starts spawning more and more of the blobs on top of that with your hits, so you need to be a bit careful. You could use his projectile as a way to counter and parry into the blobs to get rid of them, but if you're a bit too aggressive in that fight, it can go south pretty quickly. The locket. How? Why do you have it? Please. The proof of our bond. Give it back. Finally, we fight as equals. Soon our clan will have the strength to carry out our eternal mission. Tomorrow, at the setting of the sun, Gio will guide you to a spot in the forest. There I will entrust you with an heirloom. As well as my feelings, if you're willing to accept them. So, the game never directly says what's going on here. But between the dialogue that Subject Alpha said there, the cutscenes we've seen around it, and if you remember way back at the start of Part 1 when we got out of the pod, there was a computer referring to us essentially as Subject Beta. I think you can figure out what's going on here. It's really tragic, honestly. Let's free our buddy for this time. Oh, not even any words, huh? Ugh. Oh god, this statue is pissed. Several of the essence containers have broken through and established gateways through the Falcon Shrine. We're readying the next experiment, this one concerning the dormancy of Dr. Projan's daughter. The Falcon Shrine is reacting to the Master. A rift is forming. Proceeding to stabilize the rift with essence conduits. Rift readings are beyond safety levels. We need to get her out of there. The rift is still growing. Retract conduits. It's no use. We must... Well, I guess things went pretty south there. Let's see what's going on in here. Oh. So I guess the essence goop outside is just ethos vines. Neat. Let's, hopefully think that fixes things. I never knew essence could produce growths like this. The branches grew all around and there was nothing we could do. The ethos itself is spilling out through the shrine. Experimenting on our shrines to access the ethos. Curse Projan and his scientists. They had no idea what kind of powers they were meddling with. It's around now, as you can tell. I figured out to talk to people twice. Our clan's efforts weren't enough to stop the essence from overflowing into the physical realm. There's not much we can do from here. Not without our master, anyway. It looks like you've managed to stop it, but I hope we're not too late. Without bounds, all will be overtaken by the essence. It's neither good nor evil, but to maintain balance, it must be protected. To achieve this, we rely on our master and the elementals to hear the will of the dragon. There's no telling how all this unbounded essence will affect the world. I hope we're not all too late to save our master. Same here, buddy. But we at least get our next power-up from all this. The sprint. You can now double tap the directional pad or press the right bumper /R1 to dash forward. You don't need to hold it, you just need to tap it and you'll keep running. And it's a pretty good speed upgrade, so now your jump is much wider in its reach. But they don't immediately tell you this until the next screen or two. This also gives us a new attack option, the //, where if there's something you can attack when you press the attack button near a dash, you just do a giant forward slash that teleports you slightly forward. Security gate malfunction. If you had talked to that computer before investigating those, destroying those doors, it says like you need keycard F or something to get through. It's nothing super important. Mastering the dash and its attack is key to the rest of the game because a lot of the game's levels now will have sections where you either need to dash through things to get through moving platforms, or you need to dash/chain several enemies in a row in order to get through things safely. I'd argue this is the main movement tech in the game, but you get it halfway through the game, so it's kind of weird, I guess. I honestly think this should have been like the second or first equipment piece you get, just to make the levels more focused around it. Dr. Projan is taking the Dragon Shrine to the outskirts of Mecha City. The only way there is by train, and I'll need to find my way through the robot factory. Maybe in this time of crisis, the dragon will have answers even for me. Oh, there is 2 of these doors. I forgot about that one. Now, I do kind of like this moment. It kind of reminds me of some other games. We're going to be scrolling up through, like, level 2. I just think that's cool. Games that do that have my approval. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 6, we're going to handle chapters 6 and 7. Ooh, 2 in a row for once. See you guys then.